When I was reborn, my sister Ariana Jennings was having me choose a marriage partner. I looked at my boyfriend of 5 years, Damien Caldwell, then turned and leaned my delicate body against his uncle, Lewis Caldwell. In my previous life, I had rejected wealthy executives and only loved the wild and unrestrained Damien. It wasn't until after a miscarriage that I discovered the honey milk Damien had unfailingly given me for years contained abortion. Drugs. His reason was simply that he thought I wasn't as noble as Ariana and unworthy of bearing his child. Recalling our intimate moments in bed, I realized he often called me by Ariana's name. Only then did I understand that my repeated miscarriages were merely tools for Damien and Ariana's flirtation. Since that was the case, in this new life, I would be better off marrying someone else. Yet the typically cold and arrogant Damien fainted in tears at my wedding. When I opened my eyes, I was standing at the door of a luxury private room. Before I could push down the doorknob, I heard men's laughter from inside. Why didn't Mr. Caldwell bring his fiancée today? Doesn't Brielle die without you? Everyone in the room had been drinking and couldn't help joking around. Damien frowned, clicking his tongue impatiently. Don't mention her. She makes me sick. She's just a cheap woman I can't get rid of. I wouldn't even want her for free. Overhearing everything, my heart clenched violently, and my entire body began to shake uncontrollably. So this was how Damien described me behind my back, me, who had given him my whole heart. He lowered his eyes slightly, and the dim light cast on his face somehow made him appear affectionate. But since I promised her I'd take care of Brielle, I absolutely cannot break my word. Otherwise, with that woman's petty tricks, she'd never be worthy of my attention. The room erupted in exclamations, exchanging knowing glances. They clearly understood who her referred to. In my previous life, Damien had also said these words to me tenderly at our wedding. I thought her meant my parents, but I never imagined it was his longtime crush, my own sister. I had only ever been a substitute. My nose stung, but my eyes remained terribly dry as I forced a cold smile, feeling utterly disillusioned. Someone inside must have spotted me first, letting out a startled scream, and then dozens of eyes turned toward me. The door to the private room opened without warning, and the atmosphere froze the moment I appeared. The group nervously watched Damien's expression. Despite their disrespectful comments about me moments ago, no one was willing to apologize. Damien lounged lazily on the sofa, not bothering to give me even a glance. I told you, do whatever you want with the wedding. Don't bother me. His attitude was exactly the same as in my previous life, though back then I thought he was just nervous before our wedding. Now I understood he was simply taking out his frustration on me because he couldn't marry the woman he truly loved. Instead of going forward to soothe Damien's mood as I usually did, I stood calmly at the doorway. He seemed to notice my unusual behavior and narrowed his eyes, looking me up and down. Even though I'd seen this expression many times before, his emotionless gaze made my breath catch. I struggled to control my emotions. Damien, I don't want to marry you anymore. Just one short sentence, but it took all my courage. The room fell into a deathly silence. No one spoke. But their suppressed smiles were too ugly, everyone treated me like a toy for their amusement. After Damien let out a cold snort, everyone in the room burst into laughter. Brielle Jennings, how old are you? Haven't you gotten tired of playing hard to get? How many times have you said this now? If not 100 times, then at least 99. Damien leaned back on the sofa with his eyes closed, clearly thinking I was playing a little trick to get his attention. I was trembling with anger and about to explain myself when a sharp rebuke came from behind me. Enough! All of you should apologize to Brielle. Damien, if you continue treating my sister this way, I'll never speak to you again. I turned around in shock and met the woman's angry eyes. Ariana? Before I could figure out why Ariana was here, she pulled me into the house. She plopped down next to Damien, her delicate little fists pounding against his chest. How could you treat my sister like this? If she didn't like you, would I ever give you up to someone else? I painfully let you go. For Brielle's sake, but if I find out you're mistreating her, I'll never speak to you again. Ariana bit her lip, tears nearly falling. Damien nervously lowered himself to comfort Ariana. The two of them were completely wrapped up in each other, ignoring my existence. I imagined that if I weren't here, they'd probably take their flirting straight to bed. But even though they could barely contain themselves, Ariana didn't completely ignore me. She looked at me somewhat awkwardly, though her eyes didn't want to miss any of my reactions. Brielle, next time Damien bullies you, just tell me, and I'll definitely have your back, Ariana said while sliding her slender hand inside Damien's shirt, pinching his flesh hard. She pretended to be getting revenge for me, but was actually flirting with him. I clenched my fists tightly, digging my nails into the tender flesh of my wrists to barely regain my composure. I couldn't understand why I had been so stupid in my previous life, unable to see through their shameless little games. It wasn't until later, after I had miscarried for Damien time and again, my body depleted of all its strength, that I finally realized something was wrong thanks to a friend's warning. I had Damien's warm milk with honey, which he fed me daily, tested, and sure enough, it contained large amounts of abortifacients. I secretly logged into Damien's WhatsApp, intending to investigate every detail of his past. I just never expected the truth to be even more disgusting than I had anticipated. Damien and Ariana had been in a relationship since high school, but since they were both players, they inevitably broke up and got back together multiple times. Until I came along, innocent me apparently became the glue for their relationship. The forbidden thrill of cheating behind my back was irresistible to them, and their relationship only heated up after Damien and I got married. The warm milk with honey poured into my stomach every day came from someone Ariana had hired. Yet after each of my miscarriages, Ariana would pretend to feel guilty, crying as she sought comfort from Damien. The two of them kept pushing moral boundaries behind my back, again and again, until they both grew tired of the game and finally decided to let me go. Unfortunately, after countless miscarriages requiring hospitalization, my body was already wasting away, and I could only wait for death in the hospital. Every time I think about this since my rebirth, my stomach churns uncontrollably. My lover's betrayal, my family's backstabbing, each incident made me wish I were dead. So in this life, I absolutely cannot become their plaything for flirtation. I abruptly stood up from the sofa and gracefully yanked the door open to leave. Damien, we're done. This isn't a joke, it's a notification. After I left, the house returned to its rowdy atmosphere. I could even imagine how Damien's worthless friends were talking about me. But actually, as long as I could end this arranged marriage with Damien, I could completely restart my life. I had just sat down in my car when my phone immediately started vibrating. When I answered, Damien's furious roar came through. Brielle, do you have a death wish? Will you only be happy when you've destroyed Ariana?